let's talk about Zach Hyman for a second.
Speaking of contracts.
This is a big one.
Yeah.
So Zach Hyman is a UFA. He's coming off his last contract where he was making $2.25 million. And we have a guy who is turning 29 years old in a few days, who has been dealing with injuries the last few seasons. So just looking at Zach Hyman, he has not played a full season since 2017, 2018. And I know last year there was only 70 games because of the pandemic, but he only played 51 games last year. Wow. This year he missed 13 games. And then going back 3 years ago, he missed 11 games. So this guy has not played a full season since 2017, 2018. And I know there's money coming off the books with that Freddie Anderson deal, but the Leafs really can't afford to overpay Zach Hyman in this situation. No. As much as we all love Zach Hyman, he brings a lot to the table. He's obviously shown that he can actually score goals now. Zach Hyman, 36 goals in his last 94 games. I don't think any Leaf fan would have thought that he would develop into the goal scorer that he's become, seeing him, back in his rookie season where he was just a hardworking blue collar player, north, south. I'm going to go into the corners, dig the puck out, be that hard-nosed guy to play against when I'm playing with the top players, whether it's Matthews and Marner, Tavares and Nylander, whoever. He can play with anyone. He's a very versatile player. But
he carries a line. The underlying numbers for him with that regard are really strong.
And, he does a lot of things well, but the Leafs cannot get into a situation here where they overpay him and give him a lot of term. And that's the way that I look at it. Like, if you're going to give Zach Hyman anything over $5 million and 5 years,
that's the number.
I think that's a disaster.
I was literally going to say 5 times 5.
Like 5 times 5, I think is like, that's probably the money spot. Ideally, if you can get Hyman under $5 million, I think that would be really good for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts, Lepore, on this Hyman situation? Like, how much do you think the Leafs are willing to spend on him? Like, do you think 5x5 is probably the number that Dubas has in his head for this?
It's got to be around there. Like, let's be real. But like to our previous conversation about finding value in guys and the guys you have to pay, I think any fan of any team is okay spending big money and maybe even overpaying for a star player who produces bananas numbers. As much as we love Zach Hyman, that's not him. And he's had a few years now where he has put up, decent numbers. If I remember correctly, I think last year his pace was, you mentioned he missed those games. I think his pace was like between 30 and 35. There may have even been one point in the season where his pace was 35, which is
he
nuts.
Scored 21 goals in 51 games last year.
Okay. So yeah, there you go.
15 in 43 this year.
There you go.
Oh yeah. So over the last 2 seasons, he's been scoring at essentially a 30-goal pace.
Yeah. But I think there's that thing of like, I think it's that type of player, kind of like what I was referring to before, where like people will point to star players and say they're overpaid, but they don't notice the guy deeper in the lineup who makes a little bit too much. I fear Hyman could be that guy where it's like, you're paying him, say 6, and he really deserves like 4.5. So you're like, nah, that's $1.5 million over for a guy who's like a good player or a really good player, but not like an elite player. It's tough. Like, I think with the term too, the term could scare me. Like, I'd like to know where your thoughts are at with regard to like less AAV for longer term. But then, like, to the point, he turns 29 this week. There's a lot of miles on those legs. You've listed the injuries or the games he's missed because of injury. Term's a scary thing too. I don't know. Like, and again, like, we're dealing with the COVID thing. So like, you hear about all these teams and problems with money. What are they going to be willing to do? One thing that jumped out at me, I heard on a podcast, and I forget which podcast it was, maybe in the Steve Dangle podcast, the whole incident that happened in New York with Washington and how sometimes teams can go through a situation and kind of like it can turn a franchise on their head. Like an event that says, oh my God, we need this. We need this type of player. We need to be this style. They mentioned like Hyman to the Rangers. Hyman signing with the Rangers, and it just came out of the mouth of whoever delivered it. And I just thought, yes. Like I just could like picture him in the jersey and I could picture them overpaying him and it just like being a thing. And I was like, ouch. And I always say when it comes to free agency, like people talk about value and the player and what he's worth. It only takes one team to be stupid. One. That's it. And with Hyman, like he's not on a huge deal now. And here we are. Like I just went on a fucking rant talking about how all these guys who he kind of came up with got all this money and they didn't give up a thing. Why should he? Why should he give up that money? He's like, I'm the one making less money. Why should I be the one that takes a haircut? No way. And if he had that, could you blame him? And I'm sure his agent's going in there saying the same thing. So
Leaf fans out there, don't you dare get mad at Zach Hyman.
Oh, no way.
If he decides to go out there and say, fuck this, I'm going to go sign with the New York Rangers or whoever else is willing to overpay for me. Don't dare say that he should have taken a hometown discount to stay with the Leafs.
No way.
Because like you just said, Lepore, he saw the bags that the rest of these guys got. And listen, Zach Hyman is obviously not even close to the same tier of offensive player as Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. But if this guy wants to go out and extract as much value as possible based on the numbers that he's put up over the last few seasons, then you know what? All the power to Zach Hyman.
100%.
It's going to suck for Leaf fans. It's going to suck for the Toronto Maple Leafs because I think he's a very important top six forward on this team. Because when you start looking down the lineup, I mean, it's really nice to have a guy that can score a 25, 30 goal pace who does the things that he does. And you know what? If he wants to go out there and go to the New York Rangers or some other team that's going to say, you know what? Let's pay this guy $6 million plus or something crazy.
Yeah, he gets like a 6x6 or something.
Yeah.
Like
why the hell not? Let's pay Zach
not?
Hyman. Let's try to change the identity or the culture of our team and bring in a guy like Zach Hyman. You know what? Go ahead, Zachary. Go and do what you got to do.
Yeah, it'll suck, but go get paid, brother. I mean, yeah, it would suck, man. It would really suck. And as much as I just went on my rant about not getting attached to players, and I'm not overly attached to Zach Hyman, but when you see a guy go through your system, like he was drafted by Florida, if I remember correctly, came out of University of Michigan.
Yeah, 5th round pick, 123rd overall, Florida Panthers in 2010.
Yeah, there you go. 2010. Wow, that's crazy. I guess we just said he's 29. But funny how you think of it now. You're like, wow, 2010 he was drafted. Seems like so long
late
ago.
bloomer. I know it feels like, I know it's kind of crazy looking at that and saying, how the heck was this guy drafted 11 years ago? But yeah, I mean, he was a late bloomer, turning 29 years old. So yeah, that's going to be a very big decision for the Leafs this offseason in terms of what they do with Zach Hyman. What's the money? What's the term? That's big. And I hope Kyle Dubas is ready to make the most optimal decision possible with this guy, because there's just no way that they could overpay him and actually move forward and you know, they can't overpay this guy and then go out and, I mean, you're always going to find value guys like we talked about, the guys that are making $1 million, under $1 million, but it's just going to be bad, man. If you overpay another player, another offensive player, it's just going to make it more and more difficult moving forward to try and find value throughout your roster.
It's one of those things where it's like the more I think about it, the more I think it's not going to happen. Because if you asked me a few weeks ago, my mindset was just like, okay, well, Freddie's money's going out. We're going to have to fill up a goalie spot, maybe a backup, and that money will go to Hyman. And then, you know, Simmons, Thornton, those guys will get filled with other guys of similar style. But now I think about it more, and two names that just pop into my head, and it goes to the point I was saying earlier about, you know, really and truly getting value, and a lot of that value can come in entry-level deals. Robertson and Sandin. Okay, well, you've built this model where you're paying high-end guys, but also that can be successful if you draft talent and develop them. Well, then, that being said, I'd like to think you have a lot of confidence in Robertson and Sandin, like the best two young pieces for the Leafs right now. So if you sign Hyman to this big deal, where do those guys fit in? Because you're going to have to pay them eventually. And like I said, like Matthews is 2 more years, and like Marner and Nylander eventually going to come up. But those guys who are still young, I would like to think if I could get in the brains of Dubas and Brendan Shanahan, they want all those guys to resign again. So then if you want to fit in Robertson and Sandin, that's tough. If you have Hyman, like at a big contract, and I'd like to think they hope too that say like a Robertson projects higher than Hyman, like based on his talent, like his 50 goals in junior hockey. And so again,
we've already seen Janssen be a cap casualty. Same thing with
Kapanen,
Kasperi Kapanen. So like at some point, like the dam is going to burst here, right?
Yeah.
Like you can only pay so many guys X amount of dollars before it just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. So it's a rough one. Like this, like the more I get like logical with it and calm down and think like he's like another team offering him big money, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. So I don't know, man. I'm not going to tell everyone to sell their Hyman jersey now to get the value for it, but I may be telling you that the more I think about it.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know in the comments section. What do you want to see the Leafs give Zach Hyman? I mean, would you be comfortable giving him anything over $5 million? What is your ideal contract for Zach Hyman? We would love to hear from you. So Leaf fans, give us your thoughts. That would be awesome.
Bruno, right now, like pen to paper, 5 times 5. If you're the Leafs, you do that done?
I think so. But I think I even think that's a little bit too high.
Really?
I think ideally the Leafs want to come probably in the 4 range. I really do. I think 5 is probably the top of their range. I think Hyman's probably coming in asking for 5 to 6, and the Leafs maybe come in asking for 4 plus. And I guess, I know when you think about it that way, I guess the middle ground would be 5. But man, I think that's pushing it. Because I think once you start getting over 5, you're just getting into trouble here, Lepore.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, that job, once you just like envision like the 5 times 5, 5.5 times that you're like, and who knows, man, like the Leafs, they galaxy brain these things. Maybe they pay him an AAV that's a less than his real value, but he gets the money up front. Like I said, we like to do. And then you give him longer term. But then at the end of the term, he's owed very little money. So he can be sent to Robida Island, or he can be traded because he'll be owed very little money at that point, and that's an agreement. I don't know, but I mean, it's not going to be too long before we find out where exactly this is going to go.
Yeah.
So,
and one guy that I trust in this whole scenario is Brandon Pridham, who's the Leafs salary cap genius. So you would like to believe that he has these numbers figured out, and Kyle Dubas leans on him for a lot of these decisions. So if Pridham is saying, hey, we can give Hyman 5x5 and we can still make this work based on all the numbers, then you know what? Go ahead.
It's a number. Yeah.
Exactly. So they're the ones crunching the numbers. They're the ones that are going to have to make the tough decisions. And we're just going to sit back and see how this plays out.